out there. Well done, Winslet. I told you, do a Holocaust movie. The awards come, didn't I? See? Trouble is with Holocaust films, there's never any gag reel on the DVDs.
With comedy as well, I think you've got to deal with taboos and contentious issues, and sometimes you deal in irony, and some people don't get that, but, you know, you can't legislate against stupidity, otherwise you'll be doing nothing.
Oh, women. Not all women. I mean the old-fashioned ones, you know, the old-fashioned women. Oh, God, you know, the ones with wombs.
Ricky Gervais has always made it clear that just because someone feels offended doesn't mean they are right. Gervais argues that offense is a personal reaction tied to individual feelings, not universal truths. He questions why society should prioritize subjective feelings over freedom of speech, emphasizing that everyone has different sensitivities.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about offence, isn't it? When people say they're offended, it's that just because you're offended, it doesn't mean you're right.
He points out that some are even offended by equality, yet that does not make it wrong. To Gervais, humor is meant to address difficult subjects, challenge taboos, and expose societal ironies. For him, trying to appease everyone leads to hollow comedy, as effective humor often stems from breaking conventions, even if it leaves some feeling uncomfortable. According to Gervais, comedy should tackle contentious issues, often with a layer of irony. He believes that irony reveals societal absurdities, but admits it can be misunderstood. Some may not grasp the irony and take offense instead.
Offence is about feelings, and feelings are personal. Some people are offended by equality. So what? You know, so you can't second-guess people. If you try and please everyone, you'll please no one.
However, Gervais argues that humor should be kept from being watered down to accommodate misunderstandings. He insists that comedic freedom is paramount, especially in addressing topics that society may find difficult to discuss. In his view, it's better to risk offending a few than to strip humor of its ability to challenge and provoke thought.
With comedy as well, I think you've got to deal with taboos and contentious issues, and sometimes you deal in irony, and some people don't get that, but, you know, you can't legislate against stupidity, otherwise you'll be doing nothing. So if you're saying anything, you should polarise. You should polarise, because everyone's different.
In his stand-up and public appearances, Gervais often expresses disdain for restrictions on free speech. He sees the current woke culture as a threat to open discourse, arguing that it prioritizes censoring language over fostering understanding.
I hate it when people say, that joke was offensive. I gotta say, no, you've got to say, you found it offensive, because it's all about feelings, and feelings are personal. And there's loads of types of comedy, and comedy evolves, you know. There's a new type of comedy at the moment called woke comedy, right?
He laments that one can be sued for calling someone gay if they aren't, which he finds to be a homophobic double standard, as there are no equivalent repercussions if the accusation is reversed. For Gervais, such laws only stifle expression, reinforcing his belief that comedy's role is to push boundaries rather than yield to them. Gervais doesn't typically involve himself in politics, yet he has pointed out the double standards in leadership. During the COVID-19 lockdowns, British politicians reportedly attended social gatherings, while ordinary citizens endured restrictions. Gervais empathized with the public's outrage, especially those who couldn't visit loved ones in hospitals or attend family funerals.
And there's like 30 million people ahead of me. How can I not be vulnerable? Look at me. How can there people be... I mean, it's so annoying. Yeah, I can't wait to get... I will fight an old lady for that vaccine. I will...
No, come on.
Like Game of Thrones.
He ridicules politicians as privileged elites, detached from the realities of the people they claim to represent. Gervais' humor reminds viewers of the arrogance in governance, showing how humor can be a weapon against hypocrisy. Beyond British politics, Gervais critiques the elite class globally. He highlights the disconnect between those in power and the working class, pointing to the privilege of prime ministers educated at elite schools like Eton.
Well, you say you're woke, but the companies you work for, I mean, unbelievable. Apple, Amazon, Disney. If ISIS started a streaming service, you'd call your agent.
To Gervais, this costly private education distances politicians from the public, making it difficult for them to represent ordinary citizens genuinely. Through humor, Gervais exposes the irony of politicians who pretend to champion the working class while maintaining a lifestyle of luxury. Gervais is no stranger to mocking Hollywood and the celebrity culture he finds increasingly hypocritical. He famously pointed out the absurdity of wealthy celebrities speaking on behalf of ordinary people when they live in a world of excess.
If you do win an award tonight, don't use it as a platform to make a political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg.
By calling attention to these inconsistencies, Gervais questions why the public idolizes people who are often disconnected from the realities they claim to understand. His blunt, satirical approach aims to puncture the bubble of self-importance that Hollywood usually embodies. In an era when many comedians and public figures fear being canceled, Gervais seems unbothered. He points out that his fame and success protect him from such repercussions. Like Dave Chappelle, Gervais views his career as being relatively immune to cancel culture.
There are some clubs now where the comedian has to sign a thing saying he won't say anything contentious or he won't say anything that could offend anyone. It's a safe space for the audience. Woke comedy. And I tried to watch a bit of it, and I decided I'd rather watch Louis C.K. masturbate.
This immunity allows him to speak freely on controversial topics without fear of his career being jeopardized. Gervais' stance encourages other comedians and artists to challenge norms without fear, highlighting the importance of resilience in the face of criticism. One of Gervais's more controversial moments came when he joked about Caitlyn Jenner and the concept of dead naming, referring to someone by their former name after they have transitioned.
It was a Caitlyn Jenner joke, right? Oh, outrage on Twitter the next day. And by outrage, I mean a couple of people going, it was transphobic. It wasn't transphobic in the slightest. It was a joke about a trans person, but the joke had nothing to do with that aspect of her existence.
Gervais claimed he was unfamiliar with the term until after the Golden Globes incident, expressing bemusement at how even mentioning Jenner's past as an Olympic athlete could be considered offensive. His commentary sparked backlash, but he remained unapologetic, framing the outrage as an example of how woke culture seeks to police language to an excessive degree. For Gervais, such reactions are evidence of society's increasing sensitivity. Gervais has often questioned the logic behind cultural appropriation claims. He jokes that when people from different cultures adopt each other's customs, it's usually a sign of respect or admiration, not exploitation.
Cultural appropriation. Have you heard of that? Cultural appropriation, the latest no-no. Now, again, in my day, it was considered a good thing to swap ideas with other cultures, with other nations, to share things with other races, to assimilate. It was the opposite of racist. Now it's racist.
Through his humor, Gervais critiques the tendency to label cultural exchange as offensive, asking why modern society rejects practices that once symbolized unity. His jokes about food and fashion reveal what he sees as the absurdity of forbidding cultural sharing, emphasizing that respect and appreciation should not be considered inappropriate. Gervais has also targeted virtue signaling, the phenomenon of publicly expressing moral outrage to gain social approval. He argues that modern activism is not about genuine care for minorities or underprivileged groups, but about elevating one's own social status.
People go, no, black people invented dreadlocks, you can't have them, you're white, that's racist. Jamie Oliver got in trouble when he put out authentic jerk chicken recipe. People go, no, black people invented that, you can't have it, you're white, that's racist. Now, black people, they use the N-word, don't they? We invented that.
For Gervais, this kind of performative behavior trivializes serious issues and reduces them to social currency. By calling out virtue signaling, he reveals how some activists prioritize personal recognition over the actual causes they claim to support. In one instance, Gervais addressed the closure of a food bank that limited its services to specific racial groups. Gervais questioned why anyone would restrict access to food based on race, arguing that such exclusion is a disservice to those in need. His humor here highlights the irony of woke initiatives that ultimately harm the very people they intend to help. To Gervais, charity should transcend identity politics, focusing solely on providing aid where it's needed. Gervais strongly believes that comedy is not just entertainment, it's a powerful tool for social critique. Through humor, he illuminates issues that mainstream discourse often treats with caution.
No, I love the new women. I know the new women. They're great, aren't they? You know, the new ones we've been seeing lately. The ones with beards and cocks. They're as good as gold. I love them.
His comedy encourages audiences to question societal norms, view controversial issues from different perspectives, and reconsider the boundaries of acceptable discourse. For Gervais, the role of a comedian is to confront, not conform, and to make audiences laugh while reflecting on their assumptions. Unlike many public figures, Gervais remains unapologetic about his views. He sees his approach as a necessary counterbalance to a society increasingly afraid to speak openly. His style may offend some, but Gervais views that as an essential part of his job as a comedian.
Critical race theory, have you heard of that? Being taught in schools now, particularly in trendy areas like LA, right? Just like 5-year-old kids and 6-year-old kids. If you haven't heard it, in a nutshell, critical race theory says that all white people are racist. It says that we're born racist and we continue to be racist because we're affording the privilege of a racist society set up by our forefathers, okay? So basically, all white people are racist and there's nothing we can do about it, which is a relief.
He argues that if comedians avoid uncomfortable truths, society risks losing an important avenue for free expression and self-reflection. For Gervais, no subject should be off-limits in comedy. He believes that humor can bring fun to even the darkest subjects, offering people a way to confront harsh realities without succumbing to despair.
People get offended when they mistake the subject of a joke with the actual target, and they're not necessarily the same. I'll tell you the joke, you make your own minds up, right? So,
by insisting on his right to joke about anything, Gervais defends the role of comedy as a tool for resilience and healing. He reminds audiences that laughter is sometimes the best way to cope with life's challenges, and that humor itself is a form of freedom worth preserving. What role does humor play in today's woke culture? Do you think humor should have limits? Should comedians be free to push boundaries, or are there lines they shouldn't cross? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more honest conversations.